Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Heading into the weekend, and naturally, Georgia is still the center of attention politically. Marjorie Taylor Greene, in her decision not to run for U.S. Senate, there's a lot of popcorn popping and watching to go on because there's some internal acrimony going on there. She is not happy, and she's not happy that the bad news had to be delivered to her about her Senate prospects from her idol and his team. And now she's swiping at the team, not the idol, but the team. First things first, I want to talk about a story that's brewing here in Metro Atlanta. Reading from the Georgia Recorder, Ross Williams reporting that dozens of Kennesaw State University students and others gathered outside University System of Georgia offices in Atlanta earlier this week, that would be Wednesday, to ask the Board of Regents not to eliminate majors in Black Studies, philosophy, and technical communication. See, KSU announced last month that it plans to eliminate those three majors, citing low enrollment numbers. KSU spokesman Tammy DeMel said the programs did not meet the graduation standards required by all majors. DeMel said the school will ensure current students majoring in those subjects will have the opportunity to complete their degrees, and courses from those subjects will continue to be offered in minors or elective, which apparently, according to Ross Williams, wasn't much comfort for students outside the offices Wednesday, some of whom disputed the university's numbers. Students characterized the move as preemptively folding to pressure from the state and federal government. Here to join me to discuss this, NAACP Georgia Chapter President, Attorney Gerald Griggs. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ron. How you doing?
I'm good. So how much of this KSU decision is rolled into the pushback on diversity, equity, and inclusion from the Trump administration on down?
We believe this is a direct response to the Dear Colleague letter that was sent down from the Department of Education, and we believe that KSU is trying to hide behind stats and data that does not back up their position to roll back diversity, equity, inclusion, which is why they're cutting Black Studies, philosophy, and the other major impacted.
We did help me recall, did we not have this discussion, this very same sort of pushback when the regents tried to make a decision, like, what was it, a year or two ago, about Black Studies in the state of Georgia and funding for it at the high school level too?
Absolutely. That was about a year ago when the Department of Education, Secretary of Education here, tried to roll back African American studies at the state level. So we are dealing with the exact same thing. And the thing about it is there's no federal law that's enforceable that allows this. The Dear Colleague letter in its very face said this is not enforceable. And so earlier under the Gold Dome, they weren't able to pass any anti-DEI legislation. So we're confused why KSU would inject itself into this conversation when there's no legal basis to do it.
So from what you're able to discern in your position at the Georgia NAACP, do you know more about the numbers of students involved in these studies at KSU than KSU is willing to show their hand and make public?
Absolutely, which is why we're asking for a meeting so we can get a full understanding. We've already interviewed students and administrators who have already given us the numbers. And there are other majors that are well under the status that they have given to philosophy and Black studies. And we want to understand what really is the reason you're doing this. So we've written a letter to KSU. We delivered the letter and we haven't heard back from them. And then when we joined the protest on Wednesday, we heard from more students who are actively enrolled in Black studies and say that it is a major that they want to continue to pursue and that others should have an opportunity to pursue in the incoming class.
Can I just tell you, I saw the protest. I saw videos of the protest. I saw the Kennesaw Young Dems there. I was pretty heartened. This is just me. I was pretty heartened by the fact that we're not just talking about Black students that were there to protest. This was a mosaic, a multicultural pushback. And students that are taking some of these courses aren't all African-American students either.
Exactly. It's a multicultural coalition of individuals who are concerned by the attacks on education that are surfacing at our universities. And so about 100 people were out there on a Wednesday at noon. It shows you the level of focus that these students and administrators have to push back on this. And my hope is the Board of Regents will take notice that if they can convene 100 people on a Wednesday at noon, how many they can bring to the actual meeting and how many students on campus who are now now going into the summer months, will continue this protest and will continue to elevate their voices to protect their education. They want a complete and diverse education.
Yeah, let's talk about the fact that this is a Wednesday in mid-May. There are students prepping for and having graduations. There are finals to be had, if not already, in the rear view. So a lot of students are gone. This was also not an on-campus protest. This was well off campus in downtown Atlanta, which I think sort of exemplifies just how strong the pushback is.
Absolutely. I mean, for students, and I remember being in college, it's very difficult to get me off campus. But for students that come off campus, that come downtown, brave downtown traffic in the middle of the day to elevate their voice in First Amendment peaceful protest says a lot to what's happening on the campus and how the student body feels.
So what's next? What can we expect to happen?
Well, there will be continued protests. The students are now reaching out to alums and donors to have a conversation about what Kennesaw State is doing. We're hopeful at the NAACP level that we can have a meeting with the president and the provost as soon as possible to get a full understanding. We also have our attorneys on standby because, again, they're do this, and we believe simply because we were successful in our preliminary injunction against the Dear Colleague letter at the federal level, we being the NAACP and the Legal Defense Fund, that if should we have to file something in the state of Georgia, we'd be successful here too. So we're hopeful that we can resolve this short of litigation, but it's the ball's in Kennesaw State's court. We're ready to have a meeting. They need to reach out. In the meantime, the students will continue to organize.
It's fascinating. You mentioned the fact that alumni and donors are being reached out to. That's probably one of the more effective routes to get the university's attention, right? If checks stop coming in, then all of a sudden KSU takes notice.
Exactly. They need to understand, as the third largest institution of higher learning in Georgia, the birthplace of civil rights, we take this very seriously. Diversity is a strength in Georgia. It always has been. And any university that finds itself on the wrong side of diversity will find itself on the wrong side of this movement.
All right. Attorney Gerald Griggs, president of the chapter here in Georgia for the NAACP. Thanks for joining the show and giving us an update and your perspective on what's happening at Kennesaw State University with regards to African American studies. I appreciate your time this morning.
Anytime, Ron, and thank you for having me.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
From the Kennesaw Young Dems Instagram account from the Wednesday protest.
In Atlanta today, outside of the Board of Regents for the University System of Georgia, that is the governing body of all public universities. And they will be meeting tomorrow to decide whether Kennesaw State University will be allowed to cut 3 majors, including Black Studies and 2 philosophy majors, from their list of programs. Kennesaw State University has also gutted its identity-based resource centers. Here's a list of the ones that have been cut. We're going to be calling on Kennesaw State University to reinstate these identity-based resource programs. If you want more information on why these majors are being cut and how they've been cut unfairly, please go check out the Alpha Kappa Delta Instagram page. They've done a great job going piece by piece through Kennesaw State's statement and highlighting the factual errors behind why they say they are cutting these programs.
Not familiar with that young man's name, but he's with the Kennesaw Young Democrats checking in from that protest. There actually was not a vote scheduled on Thursday, so we'll follow this story as it continues on. Back to the Ross Williams article in the Georgia Recorder. The Georgia Senate passed a bill earlier this year that would have banned DEI programs and policies from all state public schools and universities, but the measure did not get a vote in the House. There's some students quoted here. Simran Mohanty, a third-year KSU student majoring in sociology on the pre-law track, said philosophy classes, among the 3 that are being shuttered at the school, prepared her to study law. She said, philosophy helps a lot with critical and analytical thinking. We know MAGAs don't care much for critical and analytical thinking. Anyway, she says, you typically have a lot of readings to do, so you have, well, there's another problem. So you have to be able to critically analyze the readings, which is really good for pre-law students who need to read legal briefs or long case documents such as that. And it also helps to have analytical thinking, of being able to analyze those readings and apply it to real-world context, practical context. So philosophy has been monumental in my studies. Again, that's Simran Mohanty, a third-year KSU student. Also, Jacob Waller, seeking a double major in philosophy and psychology, said he fears doing away with the majors would prevent students who want to dip their toes in the field from doing so. He said, you're cutting institutional support to the majors so that all of the rigor and all the quality of the classes as it is currently, which is very incredible due to our 4 professors. We only have 4 people in the department, but they're all incredible and work very hard to make sure that the sanctity of the space is preserved. The quality of those classes is going to diminish, he says, significantly by getting rid of the major because you're cutting most of the systemic support for it. There was also Stephen Sellers, third-year mechatronics major. I'm going to have to look up what that is. Who has taken philosophy and Black Studies courses, said they have been some of the most important of his college career. He says, those courses teach us not only who we are, but the history of our diaspora from the African continent. And those studies also teach us that we have a voice, we have power. And so with those studies being taken away, I can see that some of the students coming in will miss out on very vital parts of their education. When we come back, there is some news in the Public Service Commission races here in the state of Georgia. We have 2 seats up for grabs, and one of the candidates, his residency is being questioned. It's a state. It's such a confusing thing. Also, the deadline to register to vote for those elections is coming up. I believe that is, what is today? Today is May 19th. I believe that's Monday to file. Let me make sure I'm doing that right because I could totally be giving you the wrong day of the week, and I don't want to do that. No, it's Monday. Anyway, the deadline to register to vote for those races is coming up on Monday. We'll dive into all that and the questioning of a Democratic candidate's residency when the Ron Show returns here on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. We always provide the show notes at ronshowatl.com. That's where you can also, by the way, contribute to the show if you'd like to help keep it afloat. And, of course, you can always call the show, 404-919-2725. Follow the show wherever you do the social media thing at Ron Show ATL. Not a lot of us on the left still on the Twitter X platform, but I'm here. As is a friend of the show, DNC delegate, Sandy Springs City captain for the Fulton County Democrats, and a new Jewish guy. In fact, he was kind enough to invite me to his Shabbat services at the end of the month. And I told him to keep an eye out, meanwhile, for me, a handsome Jewish fella for boyfriend material. And he says, oh, Borscht Back Mountain, is it? Nice text message, Seth. Good to hear from you. He shared on his social media platform a nice reminder, and I thought I'd pass it around as well. The Public Service Commission primary election, June 17th. We had Patty Durand on from the new nonprofit Georgia Utility Watch to discuss this, how important these Public Service Commission races are. Anyway, as Seth pointed out, the deadline for registering to vote in those primaries is Monday, May 19th. I shared that as well. Just went ahead and retweeted it on the Twitter X platform at Ron Show ATL. Speaking of the Georgia Public Service Commission races, some news coming out of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Caleb Groves at the AJC reporting that one of the candidates running for one of the Democratic seats, Daniel Blackman, candidate for Public Service Commission, facing a formal challenge to his candidacy, alleging he is not a legitimate resident of the PSC's Metro Atlanta district. The challenge, filed by Atlanta resident Rodney Stevens with the Georgia Secretary of State, claims that Blackman doesn't officially live in Atlanta. The challenge comes after an Atlanta Journal-Constitution report detailing how Blackman changed his official residence to a Midtown apartment last fall, giving him just enough time to qualify for the race. The only remedy is to remove Mr. Blackman from the ballot and allow those that have followed the Constitution of the state of Georgia to legally run in the special primary and special general election, Stevens wrote in his challenge request obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution through the Georgia Open Records Act. Last month, Blackman told the AJC his October move from Forsyth County to Fulton County wasn't solely political. He said he also moved for professional and personal reasons, such as the apartment's proximity to his office, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, and his son's colleges. Stevens said the District 3 candidate's Midtown apartment could be a temporary address or second home, but he said he believes it is unlikely it is his official residence. I'm guessing Rodney's gone to the door and knocked, and Mr. Blackman's residency is fixed to his Forsyth County address, and in the best case, the Atlanta address is a temporary or secondary residence according to the temporary collegiate situation of his son, Stevens said in his challenge. Members of the Public Service Commission are elected statewide, but they are assigned to geographical districts. That's what's so confusing about all this. In order to qualify for a PSC race, candidates must live in a district for 12 months before they are eligible to run in that jurisdiction. Voting history data from the Secretary of State's office shows that Blackman voted in Forsyth County on November 5th. That's 1 month after Blackman said he moved. This is problematic. On April 3rd, the last day of qualifying for the upcoming PSC race, Blackman changed his voter registration address to an Atlanta apartment. This isn't Blackman's first time running for the PSC. Groves reports in 2020 he narrowly lost a race for the commission's District 4 seat. That district includes Cherokee, Gwinnett, Forsyth, and parts of North Georgia. He ran and lost for the same District 4 seat in 2014 and, in between, lost a bid for a Forsyth County State Senate seat in 2016. If the challenge is dismissed, Blackman will face off against 3 other Democratic contenders in a June 17th primary. So at least Democrats can take some solace in knowing that there will be a Democrat on the ballot for the general against the Republican opponent for this particular PSC race. All 3 of his opponents, Peter Hubbard, Robert Jones, and Keisha Shawn Waits, who has been on the show before, declined to comment about the challenge. Another story I want to pick up on real quick, another, again, very hyper-local story. The Cobb County School District is an odd little animal, and its marketing department, its public information office is even odder. Rebecca Gaunt from the Cobb County Courier joining me to discuss the fact that they're literally using their social media and official communications to parents as a tool of propaganda. One of the latest being this odd thing where they want to discuss multifamily housing and are literally pushing out information that seems to indicate that multifamily housing contributes to the decline in education. Rebecca, thanks for joining the show. What is this all about?
It's kind of just the latest in a long series of events where Cobb has used their marketing department to push out messages that are not really in keeping with what one would expect out of a school district.
Yeah.
A while back, some might remember they sent out a letter that had been written by their law firm that took major aim at the Democrats of Cobb County. And it was, and it really just, it definitely got quite a reaction. So last night they had their demographic review where basically they have a company that comes in and does their predictions to plan for SPLOST and things of that nature. A year ago, they do this every year. So a year ago, they had the same thing, and the superintendent, Chris Ragsdale, discussed, his concern about apartments and the transiency that he's, talks, or he uses the words transit. There's always kind of a debate, transiency versus the word mobility. Depends on who's speaking and what word they use. But, his concern about the effect that has on schools. So last night it was the same thing. Although last night it kind of took last year it was more just taking aim at apartments and the kids who live in apartments. And last night it was more of taking shots at the Cobb commissioners because he explicitly complained about the number of multifamily housing permits that they have put out since 2006, because that was part of the presentation.
Right.
All the counties all the metro counties and how many they have issued since 2006. And according to this data, Cobb has put out the most.
Okay. And what does this have to do with education is my point.
Well, his take is, that this transiency hurts, or mobility hurts the schools because, you have kids coming and going. He frequently cites, I'm trying to remember which high school it is. I think Osborne. He constantly uses as, if you look at only the students who are at Osborne, I'm 99% sure it's Osborne as his example, who are there all 4 years, the graduation rate is 94%.
Okay.
But when you consider all the students, he blames that mobility, the kids coming in and out, for the fact that then the rate drops into the 70s and it makes the school look bad.
Oh my God. Okay. Never mind the fact that we live in a society now that is way more transient than it used to be, that people don't have the same job for 10, 15, 20 years that they used to. Cobb used to have, by the way, an Air Force base. There's a National Guard. That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, is he trying to cover for lower test scores or something like that? Or is this just him trying to lob some red meat for potential political ambitions outside of being on the Cobb School Board? I'm trying to understand what the point of this is, and why is he using official school board channels to push this propaganda.
Yeah, and obviously I can't speak to his inner motivations, but I mean he and Commissioner Lisa Cupid have definitely clashed publicly on more than one occasion. So
imagine that. Yeah, I'm just
But
just the fact that he uses official school board channels to push this. It's like that's not very pro school board. That's not very uplifting of students. It's kind of unseemly.
yeah, and it's definitely, and of note also that he has himself said that this year is a tighter budget than it has been recently.
Uh-huh.
But they did allot an additional $1 million, just almost, to the marketing department to
Wow.
quote tell their own story. They need to do better at telling their own story, was his basic explanation. I feel like that extra $1 million is notable not just because of the tight budget, but also because this is the same marketing department that 2 years ago, who orchestrated to knock critics out of the line, caused a somewhat violent incident, and nothing's ever been done about that. And these are the same people that are now getting more money to continue the way they've been operating.
Of course.
And he was, in fact, very complimentary of them last night.
Of course he was. Rebecca Gaunt, Cobb County Courier, all over that story. Plus, additional dwelling units getting approved in Kennesaw. That's kind of a big deal. We'll have that story as well in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Thank you so much for joining me and giving me the update. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
So, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that it was President Donald Trump and his pollsters that told Marjorie Taylor Greene, girl, it ain't gonna be you. We also have an op-ed that friend of the show, Jay Bookman, wrote in the Georgia Recorder, some likely suspects who knifed MTG's U.S. Senate run. Now, he posted this article before the information was coming out from the Wall Street Journal. So I had tip to Jay Bookman, friend of the show, who, I mean, this guy knows his business. He's been at this a long time. I don't mean to imply that he's long in the tooth. He's just been at this a really long time. And he'll tell you, I mean, he enjoys a nice leisurely lifestyle now and writes fantastic op-eds for the Georgia Recorder. I will include this in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. I don't know really how I want to start with this. I'm going to start with a little bit of his piece, and then I'll weave back and forth, Mediaite giving us the Wall Street Journal insights here. Through most of last week, Bookman writes, U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene sounded pretty much committed to a run for the U.S. Senate seat now held by Jon Ossoff. She made it clear how eager she was to run, how much she wanted to be the one to reclaim the seat that in her mind Democrats had stolen. She wanted to wait and think about it over the weekend, she said, but her intention seemed obvious. Then suddenly everything changed, Bookman writes. On Friday, before the weekend even arrived, Greene announced that she no longer had any interest in the Senate. In a long, embittered rant on social media, she explained that the Senate doesn't work and that the Republican elite has lost touch with the American people. I won't fight for a team that refuses to win, that protects its weakest players, and that undermines the very people it's supposed to serve, she wrote. Can I deliver for the people of Georgia in the Senate? Can I fulfill my promises? Can I actually save this country from the inside? The answer, she concluded, was that she could not because her fellow Republicans would not help her. Bookman continues, Greene is nothing if not stubborn. So why the sudden change of heart, he asks. Bookman says, my theory is that the only person who could have forced such a change was Donald Trump, and that directly or indirectly, he sent down word to Greene that she would not have her hero's support. The bitterness of Greene's rant and the language she chose provides supporting evidence for that theory. She complains about the GOP elites sucking down booze at, quote, the country clubs in Mar-a-Lago, and lashes out at what she calls, quote, the political consultants embedded in the White House who allegedly manufacture polls reflecting what the elites want to see. Bookman says, I suspect another set of fingerprints would also be on the knife that found in Greene's back. That would be those of Governor Brian Kemp. He acknowledged speaking with Trump early last week about his own decision not to run for Senate and about the need for Republicans to come together to support a candidate who could unite the party and succeed statewide. That does not sound like a description of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Bookman's written about this before, by the way, that he never believed that she really had the bona fides to make a statewide run, that her shtick doesn't work outside of her ruby red, very rural Northwest Georgia congressional district. Back to Bookman. These are the Republicans who see Trump as a speed bump, one they believe they can carefully roll over now that he won't be on the ballot again, she said. Frankly, there's some truth to that analysis. Jay Bookman writes, Kemp's greatest success as a two-term governor, his most important legacy, is not policy-based. Instead, it has been his ability to keep the Georgia Republican Party largely within the broad bounds of reason, logic, and responsibility. That's a thin But okay, whatever. A party that is still capable of governing in the Trump era. It's a trick that Republican leaders in other states have been unable or unwilling to accomplish, and the GOP has suffered in those states as a result. You can get away with outrageous stuff in Texas and Alabama that you cannot in Arizona and Georgia. So now let's lend some credence here to what is coming out of the Wall Street Journal. Mediaite reporting that President Donald Trump nixed a potential Senate bid by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, according to the Wall Street Journal, which said he shared with her a brutal poll, quote, in a bid to discourage her from running in 2026. Trump's pollster, Tony Fabrizio, conducted a survey that showed her trailing Senator Jon Ossoff by 18 points, a markedly less competitive figure than, for example, Governor Brian Kemp and former Senator Kelly Loeffler. That's who I kind of think he's going to Trump is going to put his lot behind, who now serves as head of the Small Business Administration. It's just for her, have you heard any headlines out of that? Last week, Greene announced on social media that she would not challenge Ossoff. Reached for comment by the Journal, Greene expressed anger. To my knowledge, a lot of this was private conversation and apparently is being leaked, she said, adding that Fabrizio, quote, has refused to work for me because he says he has a conflict, which means he's working for someone against me. She went on to say, the same people telling Trump I can't win a general are the same people that get filthy rich off consulting on as many campaigns they can get the president to endorse. Bitter party of one. Last week, Axios cited one anonymous Trump advisor who said the president, quote, doesn't love her chances in a Senate race. Ouch. Historically, Trump has a poor track record in Georgia. We know this. We've seen this. He anointed Loeffler, put her, and endorsed her. I mean, Brian Kemp put her in the seat for a temporary, but Trump endorsed and didn't work. Herschel Walker, famously endorsed by Donald Trump, enthusiastically, because they once were on a reality TV show together. His latest move will come as a relief to Republicans who doubt Greene's chances of higher office, Mediaite reports. After losing the state in the 2020 election, the president falsely claimed the election was rigged against him, likely depressing Republican turnout in two runoff races for U.S. Senate in Georgia, which flipped control of the chamber to the Democrats. In 2022, Trump backed primary challenge to Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger after they refused to go along with the scheme to overturn the 2020 election results in the state. Both Trump-backed candidates lost. That year, Trump also endorsed, we said, Herschel Walker in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. Ultimately, Walker lost to Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock. This is all just juicy stuff and fun to watch. Speaking of reality TV shows, I'll get with this here in a little bit. The story that the Trump administration wants to create a reality TV show for immigrants to get approved to come stay in the United States. I am not making that up. Back to the Bookman piece wrapping here on Marjorie Taylor Greene. Kemp, to his credit, recognizes that what we talked about, like you can get away with outrageous stuff in Texas and Alabama that you cannot in Arizona and Georgia. Kemp, to his credit, recognizes that, Bookman writes. He has talked of wanting to leave the state and party as he inherited it from predecessors such as Nathan Deal and Sonny Perdue, one-time conservative Democrats who found success as conservative Republican governors. Kemp understands that if Georgia is now a purple state, as attested by its two Democratic senators, it would be much closer to outright blue today had GOP leadership succumbed to the mindless Trumpite populism that we're now seeing play out at the national level. Or I would argue if we, undid gerrymandering, because that's what really keeps the state legislature nowhere near as purpley as the state electorate appears to be. Will Kemp, as a lame duck governor, be able to enforce that discipline through the 2026 election cycle? Bookman asks. For the moment, he seems to have an important ally in Trump. That's interesting, right? Himself. But the president is nothing if not fickle. Just ask Marjorie Taylor Greene. Woo! All right. I'll share both the Mediaite article that references the Wall Street Journal reporting on that polling information and Jay Bookman's column from the Georgia Recorder as well in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. All right, final segment for today's Ron Show, and let me get to an article. I'm going to give you some personal news, but I want to get to an article that sort of belies why I'm going to do something that I'm going to do here very soon. I know you're all intrigued, right? You're leaning in. You're like, oh, what's Ron about to do? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporting that Cox Communications and Charter are about to combine in a major cable deal. J. Scott Truby reporting on this. The combined cable company will retain the Cox name. They say we'll be better able to compete in an evolving marketplace for internet and video entertainment, according to executives. They plan to merge with Charter Communications in a deal that, if approved by regulators, will combine two of the nation's largest cable companies. That is bad for you. I don't care what the spin from the executives is. This is bad for you. This is less choice for you. Cox Communications, based in Sandy Springs and owned by Cox Enterprises, also one of the major contributors to the Atlanta Police Foundation, and I'm sure in the Mayor Andre Dickens' coffers as well. Third largest cable operator in the nation. Charter, based in Stamford, Connecticut, is the second largest. So now the two largest cable providers in the country are coming together to basically dwarf everyone else. The combined company, to be called Cox Communications within a year of the closing of the deal, will be publicly traded and based in Connecticut. Oh, that's bad for Atlanta. But it will retain significant operations at the Cox Enterprises campus in Sandy Springs. By the way, I'm reading this from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is a Cox-owned entity, by the way. The complex transaction, which will require shareholder and regulatory approval and could take a year or more to close, values Cox Communications at about $34.5 billion. The combined company would surpass Comcast in terms of cable customers. It will also offer its suite of consumer and business products under Charter's Spectrum brand. I forgot about Spectrum. Those offerings include fiber internet, mobile, wired telephone service, and streaming entertainment. This is, again, bad for us, bad for we the people. Like we're all already tethered to Zuckerberg and all of Facebook and Instagram, and I know a lot of folks are sort of backing away from that, but it's still the predominant social media channels out there. And now, less choice when it comes to cable and internet. Their statement, our family has always believed that investing for the long term and staying committed to the best interests of our customers, employees, and communities is the best recipe for success. It's the best recipe for their success. Alex Taylor, chairman and CEO of Cox Enterprises, giving that in a news release. In Charter, we found the right partner, it's the second largest, at the right time, Trump administration, and in the right position to take this commitment to a higher level than ever before, delivering an incredible outcome for our customers, employees, suppliers, and the local communities we serve. So let me get to the personal part. Those of you who know me or have followed enough to know about me know that I came from working in the radio broadcast realm for the longest time. I worked in radio broadcasting, and it's where I spent about 28 years of my life, actually through high school, if you count that, and some college, cutting my communication teeth. It's where I learned about broadcasting. And we've seen this since the 1990s, the mid-1990s, the FCC Telecom Act that President Clinton signed into law. One of the ugly little compromises under the Clinton administration was to allow for deregulation, the consolidation of ownership of broadcast entities, specifically with regards to radio stations. It went from you could only own like 2 FMs and 1 AM station in a market, period, to now Katie bar the door. And now that's why we have folks who, in my age, some a little younger, some a lot older, who wax nostalgic about the time when your local radio station was just ingrained in your life, in your culture, in your society, in your community. You knew the morning DJs. You went to go see them when they were out live somewhere because it was so exciting to see a local celebrity. And now, of course, you have, well, I mean, I hate the name drop, but now you have Ryan Seacrest, who is on middays or afternoons on just about every KISS FM pop station throughout the country. You have Steve Harvey, or you have all of these nationally syndicated talents that are on morning drive or middays or afternoon drive, voice tracked wherever they're voice tracked. I mean, here in Atlanta, by the way, like a top 10 radio market, right? It's one of the largest radio markets in the country. We have 2 pop stations. One houses The Burt Show, which is Atlanta-based, but syndicated nationally, which means that most of their content isn't Atlanta-targeted content. It's not about what's happening in and around Metro Atlanta. And then you have a lot of syndicated voice talents, part-time employees, et cetera, and so on. It's a patchwork of what the station, it's Q99.7 now, used to be Q100. It's a patchwork of what that station used to be. And when it signed on with The Burt Show, very credible, very entertaining morning show, was stealth competition. I'm sorry, sturdy competition for the crosstown competitor, which at the time was Power 96.1, which is now Power 106 something or other. I forget where it is on the dial. I can't even find it. It's in a rim shot, weaker signal. Power, okay. Q99.7 owned by Cumulus Broadcasting, one of the larger radio companies in the country now. Hundreds of radio stations across the country from coast to coast. And they do the same thing. They use a lot of syndicated talent from hub and spoke, big markets to small markets. Their crosstown competitor now, again, on that rimshot signal, Power, they've sort of succumbed to, the competition. They can't beat the Bird Show, so they just sort of withdrew a little bit. And Atlanta's a unique market where it's a majority-minority demographic community, so they just didn't see the monetary gain from having a second top 40 radio station at full bore, fully staffed. So they don't. They syndicate a morning show, I believe, out of Seattle. I don't know how that works. A morning show out of Seattle. I guess it's the prior day's content aired the next day. And then a lot of Ryan Seacrest. Ryan Seacrest is on Power here in Atlanta. Of course, we know he's not based in Atlanta. But his show airs in Atlanta and on dozens of other pop stations throughout the country owned by iHeart Communications. It's just gotten to where, like, the term broadcasting literally means broadly casting your information, but it's also come to where it's like just a broad, I would say, generic casting of audio on the AM and FM spectrum. I got out of radio in 2019 and had been listing about this show, by the way, a product of me seeking out what that next thing was going to be for me. And so I came to this show. My therapist and I arrived at the need for me to do this show and the necessity of this show to have a voice for those who are, in and around Atlanta and Georgia and throughout the country who have a left of center point of view and want to hear our conversations and our positions framed in a way that makes sense, that's easy to understand. That's messaging. You've heard me say this for a long time now, and especially since the November elections, that messaging is the problem. For Democrats, progressives, liberals, messaging is and has been the problem, and packaging it, delivering it has been a large problem. That's why this show exists. But it didn't always scratch the radio itch for me. It gets me out of bed. It gets me to do something every morning to deliver a show for America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn, 9 a.m., 5 p.m. on America One, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices, by the way, or wherever you podcast. So that was a personal itch for me. But seeing the consolidation of ownership of our broadcast entities, as Americans have over the years, it sort of left us wanting, right? Lacking in community. We don't have that sense of community anymore. You go to a lot of smaller towns throughout the state of Georgia, and their local radio station still means a lot. It still means a lot in places like Milledgeville or Madison or Waycross. It still moves the needle in Dalton. It still moves the needle in places like Cartersville or Clayton, Georgia. My God, Clayton. What a great little town. If you haven't gone to Clayton, Georgia yet, and you're a mountain touristy type, go to Clayton. You're going to love it. Anyway, broadcasting in its current form, TV stations owned by these conglomerates, all airing the same packaged pieces in large part, especially outside of your major cities. Americans just aren't getting the diversity of information that they got before the mid-1990s saw the ushering in of this consolidation of corporate entities. And the Cox charter thing ain't going to change that. It's not going to change it for the better anyway. It'll probably exacerbate already just how hard it is for us to get alternative voices and alternative programming before our eyes and in our ears. So I decided here recently, I ran into an old radio friend who launched a local station that is exclusively online. And most people under the age of 60, by the way, they get their audio, especially when it comes to music audio, they're getting it off the internet anyway. Streaming apps, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, Odyssey, blah, 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 blah. That's what they're doing. So he launched a radio station in a tourist destination, and the Chamber of Commerce there loves it. In fact, I think they help financially support it because it gives potential visitors like a listen in on the market, like what's happening in that beach town with all of the events going on and the forecast for the coming days, et cetera, and so on. It's a great little niche, a great little look in on that beach town. And he started this radio station that is, again, not really a radio station. I should say audio station. He started an audio station that has a really cool, vibey playlist, inoffensive, 80s, 90s to now, yada, yada. You get it. But also a lot of information about that destination market. And he launched it, and he's had success with it. I decided I can do this too. And because I'm based in Atlanta, I am a gay man. I'm embedded in the LGBTQ plus community here in Atlanta and have been by and large since I started my real estate business, because that's, you got to get out and network, meet people, do things, right? Press the flesh, rub elbows. And that's all I'm rubbing. Anyway, I decided, since I have all these connections and I've put all of this sweat equity into networking and meeting folks, that Atlanta, lacking again in the sort of local broadcast that I think people still pine for, I'm betting on it anyway, am launching an online-only LGBTQ plus radio station. See, I said that word again, radio. It's not radio, it's audio. I'm launching this audio station. It's called Audio Gay TL, and the app's in development. The LLC has been filed for, and there are socials. There's a website, audiogaytl.com. And in the coming days, this station will launch. In fact, the stream is quietly being tested right now. And I've sent the link out to a handful of people. Hey, listen to this. Tell me what you think. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Very excited about this. And we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. We'll see, how successful this will be. The idea for me is to try and do this in a way that is not overly commercialized, because the overhead's low. Unlike iHeart Communications or Odyssey or whatever, I don't own all of these AM, FM transmitter sites and studios and all that debt that got saddled onto them when they bought. In many cases, the waves of purchasing of radio stations happened just before recessions, from like the 2007 or 2008 recession, the recession of the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic just almost destroyed radio broadcasting altogether. And also taught those companies, hey, by the way, we can have our DJs do the work at home. We don't need them to come schlepping into the studios all the time. Yeah, the technology was there all along. Go figure. Anyway, so I'm launching this station very soon. It'll have a playlist, a very eclectic but very targeted playlist for the LGBTQ plus community. There'll be a lot of homages to LGBTQ plus artists and icons, friends of the LGBTQ plus community over the decades. And we'll have local talent spotlighted on there as often as possible. I mean, I have people that live in my building who are musicians and artists, and they're not necessarily even gay, but they're very gay friendly. So I'm gonna spotlight them, and we're gonna have conversations that impact the LGBTQ plus community here in Atlanta as well. There'll be a house podcast, not a morning show as much as a podcast, that'll sort of be dispersed throughout the day, but also podcastable like this show is. Very excited about this. This is what I call, and I didn't invent the term, but I'm using the term. May not be in the way that the inventors of the term coined it, but I'm using the term. I call it narrowcasting. This isn't broadcasting. This is narrowcasting. It's a very niche audience, but a healthy audience in the city of Atlanta. An audience that I think is craving some local, authentic touch in their ears with the music that they love and the information that they crave. And let's see if this is the start of a trend. I'm not going to say I'm starting the trend, but I kind of think that this could be the start of a trend, and we'll see if it takes off. Anyway, just thought I'd share that with you as you head into the weekend. Think of it what you will. Of course, I'll put all the information out there for you to share as well at Ron Show ATL on the socials as well. Or you can follow that social media empire at Audio Gay TL, wherever you do your socials. That's going to do it for today's Ron Show. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com. Thanks to Attorney Gerald Griggs, Rebecca Gaunt from the Cobb County Courier for joining us. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday.